Hey, what's up? How's it going, everybody? I am Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed. I was just feeling like doing something today, and so I fired up the cameras, got myself some coffee. Feel free to join me in that. Anyway, I woke up feeling a little Hendrixy, a little Stevie Ray today, so I plugged in a wah pedal. Thought I'd talk a little bit about how the Voodoo Child type of riff is put together. There's a couple of really cool elements to that. One being, I'll say, the main riff, and of course how we use it with a wah pedal, and the other part being the rhythm figure, which is very akin to like an old school Muddy Waters type of riff. Maybe you know it already, maybe you don't. Either way, we're gonna talk a little bit about it, because we can. And it's raining here in sunny Southern California. It's been pouring for like 4 days. So drink coffee and wear a flannel and be warm. That's what we do. I've been doing this the last few days, kind of trying to get the hang of it, and I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of it. So quite a few people have asked, about my stuff. I'll say I have, lots of blues guitar courses, lessons. I send out emails a lot, but obviously, the sky is crying for sure today. Obviously, this is an online thing. I have a bunch more stuff. I actually have started recently a program I call the All Access program, which is access to every single thing that I own. Plus, we do a bunch of really in-depth live sessions every month. Some of you on here may already be a part of that program, in which case you can jump in and tell people how you like it. But anyway, the URL is on your screen if you want to check into that to dig into my teachings further. But without further ado, let's talk about some Hendrix and stuff. So, and if you don't get my emails and you'd like to get my emails, well, you can sort of read that. gobgu.com/thelist. Previous one was gobgu.com/allaccess. So the all access pass. I set up that gobgu.com just because it makes it easier than typing bluesguitarunleashed.com. So the gobgu was available. I've tried all kinds of URLs to get something shorter. Note to those of you wanting to start something, use a short title. Anyhow, got a bunch of people on. This is awesome. Super stoked. Love it. Love it. Let's play some blues. So, if you, obviously, you've probably heard Voodoo Child before. Hendrix does a version, Stevie Ray does a version. Truth be told, the Stevie Ray Vaughan version of Voodoo Child was something that I heard when I was like 17, 18, and it changed my life. So, it was just like, I literally woke up today with that song in my head. So, I thought we'd talk about it. For those of you that are going to ask about the tone, I'm not using anything fancy. Again, as always, I'm using my, it's a Digidesign 11 rack. It's old, but I have it set on a kind of generic super reverb setting. That particular patch is actually available if you're an 11 rack user. I've posted it. You can easily find it in the BGU member forum. There used to be a website called 11rackpresets.com. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I did share it once upon a time. I use it for everything. I've used it for the last several years. It's just super easy, and for recording and live streaming and all this kind of stuff that I do, it just makes perfect sense. I'm using a Keeley modded Boss Blues driver. Levels at Unity. I like the pedal to be about the same volume on or off. Gain is about midway up, and tone is just shy of midway up. And that gives me kind of a nice... And if I back off the volume a little on the guitar, cleans up. So it's a... haven't tried the Wazacraft version, by the way, of the Blues Driver. It might do something similar if you don't want to get the mod. And for the extra oomph today, I am boosting the Blues Driver with a super overdrive. Okay, so it's super overdrive with the level pretty high and the drive not very high. My knobs are broken, so I can't tell you exactly where. The super overdrive is from like 1980. I've had it forever, but it works great. Tones pretty much top dead center. So anyway, that's how I'm getting the tones. General tone, just the Blues Driver. For the extra oomph, I have the pedals here. Sorry, I don't have a camera for that. The pedals down here to my left that you might see me hitting are stuff for the cameras and such. So try to just ignore that. I try to make it subtle, but I'm a one-man chief cook and bottle washer type of operation. I don't have anybody else pushing buttons for me. So that's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, the comments don't scroll. So periodically I'll try and check in with y'all. But let's get to it. Let's get down to business. So if you now, of course, Stevie Ray and Hendrix tuned down roughly a half step. Back in the old days, it wasn't perfect because they didn't use electronic tuners a lot. But let's say that it's tuned down a half step. So while I'm going to play it in E, when you hear it, you're gonna think that's not an E, it's an E flat. So if you try to play with it without tuning your guitar down, it's not gonna work out. So if you want to play along with the original recording, you would have to, bring all your strings down about a half a step. I would probably listen to the recording and try to match it up because it's going to be a little bit off, particularly the Hendrix recording. But once you are tuned down, you may remember that I talked about a pattern called the 2+3 pattern. Okay, and this is such a shining example of that, and I didn't even think of that when I was putting this lesson together, but it couldn't be more coincidental and convenient. So I've got the E right at the 7th fret of the 5th string, and if I do that 3+2 pattern or 2+3 and go up to the next E, that's what I get. And if I go down, okay, well, if I change the order of those notes, so it's the 9th fret, 7th fret, and I do a little hammer on 7 to 9, 7th fret on the 3rd string. So this is 7 to 9 on the 3rd string, 9 to 7, sorry, 7 to 9 on the 4th string, and then I jump down to the 5th fret on the 4th string, and 7th, and then down to the 7th fret on the 5th string. 9 and 7, 9, 7, 9. Now this may or may not be exactly perfect. And I'll be the first to admit that this is one of those songs that I learned 20 years ago and have played it 7,000 times since. And songs that fall into that category, I tend to embellish and change and modify, and I tend to forget how the exact original recording went. Okay, so while I'm sort of giving you like the general gist of it, listen to those original recordings if you want to nail that sound. I'm just kind of showing you where the notes are coming from. Okay, but if you really want to nail the original sound, it's gonna be this group of notes. There just might be some subtle differences. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I got and that's just the 7th fret at the end. And you just play that over and over. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick on my wah. So it's down at my foot, and I apologize that I don't have a camera on that, but I've got my heel rocked back. So as I strike a note, I'm going to rock my toe forward. Basically what I'm doing is, if you count this out, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 and 2 and, sorry, 1 and a 2 and 3, right? So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So I've got that eighth note pulse. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So if you could tap your foot, right? 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Right? Okay, if you can do that foot tap, then you can do the wah. Because all I'm going to do is rock my toe forward. 1. Right? So that'll get you started. What's usually tricky with the wah for most people is sort of vocalizing with it, because it's truly almost like another instrument, which it's sort of like singing and playing at the same time. It's hard to sing and play at the same time because of the fact that you have, the playing is one rhythm, and then you're singing, and if you were to write out the singing, that would be a different rhythm. Okay, so it's like your brain, as if it doesn't have enough trouble with one rhythm, it has to do two. This is the same sort of idea. The wah will be at a different rhythm slightly than you're playing, okay? So the way you make it simple on yourself is to keep it even. Right? Now, of course, that doesn't sound exactly right, and I get that. But that's a good way to get started, because you're keeping that pulse. And then the way you modify it as you get comfortable with that is you, at the end, places where you let a note ring out, at the end of the phrase, you stop the rock. So the first note, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Now I'm rocking even. So when I'm playing a single note, I sort of pause that rocking motion, and then when I go back to playing the notes on 8th and 16th notes, I return to that sort of 8th note rocking motion. So it ends up being 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. And then I just would hold it. So it's a little bit, like I say, it's a little bit of a different thing. If you get really comfortable just playing the notes, you probably won't have too much trouble adding it in. And things like that, are just sort of random movements of the wah. There's no beat or anything to them. But it's actually it's actually fairly comfortable when you kind of get the hang of it, Again, it's like playing and singing. If those notes are really challenging, then adding in the wah is just adding insult to injury. It's just going to be really hard. Really, really hard. Probably to the point that it's not going to be worth even trying. You're just going to get frustrated. So make sure that, playing through those notes is super comfortable, super easy for you, and then adding in the wah is not so difficult. It's just too hard to try and do it all at once. If you don't have the notes down and then try to add the wah, it's just really tough to do. So let's talk briefly about the other riff. Hey, my fingers may be slow, but at least they're extremely inaccurate. That's awesome. That is super funny. Okay, so, and Jerry, you said you always thought a wah pedal would be better if it was designed to use with your heel instead of your toes. You know, if you had, you could probably invert you could probably invert the pot or something. I wonder if you like switch the leads on the pot. I don't know anything about electronics. So, reverse the polarity. That's what they always say in sci-fi movies. Surely it works on a wah pedal too, right? Reverse the polarity. Anyway, I don't know. All right, let's move on. Okay, so I've got basic E chord. So this bend, it's the third string, bending up at the second fret, and then pull off to open, and then play the root, the E on the second fret of the fourth string. So 1 E and 2 E. This happens, that part is really quick, such that this is on the and of 2. 1 and 2 and 3. Open E, third fret, sorry for the fret buzz, third fret on the sixth string, second fret on the fourth string. I really need to get my guitars in. This weather's killing them. And you could strum more than that. That's just the basics. And then if you want to do like you kick in the extra overdrive, Stevie kicks in a fuzz. That's all just E minor pentatonic. And I know I'm getting crazy with it, but what makes that kind of stuff work is those big giant bends. One of my favorite tricks, by the way, that he does is he bends up this 14th fret on the third string and goes back and forth between on the pickup selector. And I know it probably won't come across. But this idea is the same as this that we do earlier. So Stevie and probably Hendrix too does it all the time. And you don't have to, like, if your technique is not down for doing all the super fast speedy stuff, I always tell people, do the big bend. You know, if you hit like if you were playing this song with a group and you couldn't, okay, if you can't pull that kind of stuff off, and a lot of people can't, and admittedly I have stuff for that, because that's definitely a skill, and you want to build your technique to get to that. But if you can't and you want to play the song, hitting those really big bends like that is a great way to, it adds the oomph, you know, and gives it a little bit of cojones there, but at the same time, it's not technically super challenging. It's not fast, right? You can do a big bend and pick it, give it some sugar, right? And none of that's really fast. It's eighth notes. 1, 2, and... Right? That's going to sound fantastic for an audience. People would totally dig that. You'd have a ball, and it's not that hard. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to just jam this song with some buddies or something, you don't have to play all that fast stuff that Stevie played, because it's really hard, and it definitely takes some time to build that kind of technique. And you know, if there's arthritis at play or any kind of physical ailments, that's going to make it even worse, right? But you don't need that speed to say something really, really cool. And many times, I will be the first to admit, I play too fast and I hear myself back, and I just shake my head like I really should have slowed down there. It would have sounded better. People can soak it in and get what you're putting down sometimes better when it's not so fast. Okay, and I will be the first person to admit that I overdo the speed thing because I can. And I always tell my students, if you hear me doing this on stage, you know I've run out of ideas, because that's just a scale exercise. And I can talk to you all day long and do this. I can have a conversation with my wife about what we're going to have for dinner and run scales like this. That's not thinking. That's just blowing scales. And if you practice like that, and if you build that kind of technique, then yes, you can do that. But that's not really soloing. That's not really very musical. It's a fun little trick once in a while, but it's not the kind of thing that you should necessarily aspire to. So, all right, I think that's pretty much it. There's only a couple, that's really the main section. Now, the melody. I'm not really sure. I always just kind of match the vocal line. I haven't. Again, this is one of those ones where I haven't listened to the original. I haven't listened to the original recording in so long. But I always play that melody in box 4. Again, it's E minor. So starting with that E, 7, 10 on the 5th string, 7, 9, 7, 9 on the 4th and 3rd, 8 and 10 on the 2nd string because of the B string, and 7 and 10. Right, so that's where all those melody notes come from. So I start on the 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, 3rd, roll down to the 4th string, 3rd string. And then, I think that's right. So that's just bouncing back and forth between the 3rd and the 4th string there at the 7th and the 9th fret. And then I do a little, I slide over to that, I'll say 2+3 pattern. And I do a little slide on the 7th fret, down to the 5th fret on the 4th string, and then down to the 7th fret on the 6th string. Or you could do it all in that same pattern. And so the rest of this is the same thing, except that's all the same. And then the 2nd string, 10th fret goes up to 12. And then back, 8, 10, 12, 8. And then it goes to a G chord. But he only plays, what's cool, what makes this sound so cool, it's just a G chord, but he just plays the 5th and the 3rd strings of it. And then the next chord is an A, but with a C sharp on the 5th string. At least I only play the 5th and the 3rd string. I think this is right. And then a C7 and a D7, and I just do those little 3-note versions of it. You don't want like a 9th chord. There's too much overdrive and stuff going on. Just the 3 notes, and that's it. And I think everything else is pretty much a repeat. And like I said, I haven't, this is probably not 100% accurate, but it's certainly enough to get you well within the ballpark just to play around and have some fun this weekend. And that's really what it's all about. All right, so oh, thanks, Marv. Hey, Paul. Very cool. Is that mostly hammers and pulls? Yeah, and I'm sorry. I tend those of you that know me and have my courses and have gone through stuff, I always say the same thing, which is don't ever feel like you have to pick something that I pick, or that you have to hammer on or pull off something that I hammer on or pull off. Throughout my life, I've completely modified things to suit my technique. I'm a big believer that everyone has what I call their own guitar DNA, which is there are certain techniques, and I've seen this, like, I'll have 2 beginning students start at the same time, and 6 months later, this one is way farther than this one. 2 years later, this one is way farther than this one. Because everybody picks up different things at different times. And so for one person, a lot of those basics, the strumming and keeping time and all those sorts of things, those bedrock foundational things are very easy. For the next person, they're not. But then later on, when they both have those bedrocks and it comes time to, learning blues scales and improvising and stuff, this one has a much easier time at that than this one. Everybody has different things that is easier and more difficult. And so, if one person might be really comfortable with hammer-ons and pull-offs, that would be me. My picking is crummy, to be quite honest. And another person is very comfortable picking everything, has no trouble with that. So, like, if I play Eric Johnson stuff or Joe Bonamassa stuff, those guys are great pickers. I'm not. So I'm going to hammer on and pull off stuff that they probably would pick. I'm going to get the same notes. I'm just going to execute them slightly differently. And that's just because it works for me. I might even refinger things. You might... particularly on fast stuff, if somebody else is doing something really fast like that, it might be easier for you, instead of stretching it out, to maybe the slide is easier. And who knows what the situation could be. But just to answer your question about hammering on or pulling off, yes, I hammer on and pull off a lot of stuff because it's comfortable for me. You don't have to do that. You can pick it if it's more comfortable. You can try the hammer-ons and pull-offs. That might work for you. Okay, so very good. I've probably talked longer than I should have today. I've taken up more of your day than I should have already. So I'm gonna head out. But thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. And stay dry if you're in sunny Southern California today. Again, if you are interested in the All Access Pass, there it is, gobgu.com/allaccess. If you want to get on the email list, if you want to start I send a lot of stuff by email as well. It's not always the same. So gobgu.com/thelist. You can just sign right up there. And that's it. I will talk to you all soon. Take care of yourselves.